Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crushing Comics. I am here with my comic fan friend from around the world, Fangirl. How are you today, and how excited are you for this conversation?
I am doing very well. And, to be honest, as fun as it is, I'm still kind of reeling from the experience. So we're going to see how it goes. I may actually end up crying and just leave the room in the middle of talking. So yeah, you have to excuse me if that happens.
So the experience that she's referring to is Avengers Infinity War. We made a pact several weeks, maybe even months ago now, that we were both going to see it as soon as possible, and then we were going to get on video as soon as possible without too much other chatter about the movie and unload. So we are just a few days past watching it right now, and we are going to just do a full download. Now, let me just disclaim, we're comic book fans. We are not necessarily film critics, and we're going to be definitely approaching this, I would say, as comic book fans. Would you agree?
I mean, I am more of a casual comic book fan. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know about you, because I have a feeling that you read a lot of comic book. I just get that feeling somehow. But I
don't know if anybody can see, if Priya is in front of a shelf as packed as mine. You read so fast. I'll be like, oh, I just made it through this run. And I will go online, and Priya will have posted 3 different reviews for 3 different runs she has read while I'm reading one run. So I don't think I believe her when she says she's not a serious comic book fan. That's a lie.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be humble, but okay.
Okay. So I want to start out just with just reaction. I think we're going to talk a little bit about specific plot beats, specific actions, specific characters, speculation, but just what was your end credits roll reaction to the movie?
So I usually am the one who is very quiet during the movies, and I went to see it by myself. So, I just I'm not going to wait for anyone. Thursday night.
No patience.
Yeah, this is the first time you actually went. You saw it before me. I'm like, no.
Well, New Zealand got it 24 hours early. And so I went right from the gym to the movie. I'm like, I want to be in physical pain and emotional pain all at the same time.
Right. And so the thing is, I got the ticket, I showed up, and so I'm not someone who actually exclaims a lot during movies, because I find it to be kind of weird thing to do, especially, and ruins other people's experience. But as soon as the movie ended, I just went, what the F? And everyone started laughing in the theater. It was a packed theater. There was it was every seat was taken. It was Thursday night, 7:45, and I couldn't help it, because that's exactly what it was. WTF.
I too am not somebody who likes to make a lot of noise in the movies. I even get self-conscious sometimes when I laugh at movies, because and that's why I liked going alone, because I was I just want to absorb this and not really think about how other people are absorbing it. And at the very end, the after credit scene, we all know I'm a massive Captain Marvel fan, and when her logo came on that damn beeper, the whole audience was silent, and I was like, yes!
Yes. Yes.
I was so embarrassed. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to cheer out loud. And then I kind of looked around and I was like,
I know. And the thing is what? Okay, so by the way, we have to tell people that we're completely going to spoil it.
Oh, yeah. I think they know. I'll put it in the title. Big spoilers.
Yeah.
We've only spoiled 1 second of the movie so far, but it's going to be more.
Right. And the thing is but I was laughing my head off that finally Samuel L. Jackson get to say his catchphrase in a Marvel movie. And this was the most epic way that could happen. So my end credits scene, that was more my first, my only takeaway. And I'm yeah, okay, Marvel, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, we know that's coming. But the thing is, I was he get to say his catchphrase from Pulp Fiction. And that was, to me, was the most divine thing.
So aside from just that final scene, what was your reaction to the movie as a whole, and we'll get into the specifics of the ending. Well, I mean, clearly we both really liked it. Were you surprised, shocked? You said there could be crying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know how to say, I didn't see anything coming, any of this coming, I mean, we read Hickman's Avengers before going into it, and as much as they kind of kept to it, and there was a lot of inspiration, it's nothing like that comic books but I don't know, I was just kind of excited to see all these people, different team ups that I would never think that in million years that Thor and Rocket will get together, you know, like, and there's all these different team ups happening, and that was so exciting. And then the ending happened, which was no sound, nothing, and I don't know, it was like a very emotional roller coaster kind of for me. And the thing is, like, what I really loved is that this was a proper comic book movie. It's like a page turning on the screen. Like, and it's like, you know, the crossover and everything. And to me, and all the things that led up to it, I want to meet someone who this was their first Marvel movie. This was their first MCU movie, and see their reaction. Like, there is no way this is someone's first MCU movie and they're like, yeah, I loved it. No, you didn't, because you didn't understand anything.
Well, you know, I mean, that was absolutely my first reaction to it, was like that this was a comic book crossover. I love, and I felt this way a little bit in Ragnarok too, that the cutting actually felt like cutting from issue to issue of a crossover, like a really good classic multi-title Marvel crossover, rather than like one of these modern events where you could like just feel the kind of the gears grind and shift. And not only would the scene change, but like the tone would change, the lighting look would change. Like, they really made it feel like we were viewing 4 different stories, you know, the Cap Avengers story, the Iron Man Avengers story, the Guardians of the Galaxy story, and then, you know, ultimately Thor has like a kind of a sideline story from that. And then some of them kind of twist and merge, but I definitely had this feeling of it as a crossover. And so I had a similar train of thought to you, like, what would somebody think reading this first time? But I remember back in the 90s buying comic books for the first time and picking books up in the middle of the crossover, or reading a crossover with not a lot of background, and thinking like, this is the coolest thing ever. I want to know about all of these characters. So neither of us really can speculate, because we know about the characters from comic books and from the movies. But I think it could be a little bit naive to say like, well, if somebody didn't see all the movies, they won't like it, because that's why to me it felt so comic booky more than a film. It didn't play by all the rules that a big film like this feels like it should have played by. Like, yeah, it reintroduced characters, but in terms of the narrative structure, in terms of where the climaxes were, it felt much more like a 12-issue comic book crossover than it felt like a film. And so I don't think it's fair to apply a lot of film rules to it, because I think they're doing something very unique and different that not a lot of people have managed to do with movies, because they've had 18 other films to do it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm just more talking about that if someone who's not a comic book reader, who has no idea about who these people are, these characters are, and they just want to show up as a movie, I have a feeling that they would be disappointed. And, you know, it's I don't know. I mean, you know, if someone out there who is feels different about it, please let me know, because I would like to pick your brain. Well,
we have to find the rare person who's never seen any Marvel movie, but somehow got convinced to go and see it in the theater. Who knows how few of them are.
No, it's possible they're 5. I would buy that. You know, if they're 5 years old and this is their first movie, sure, I would like to talk to them.
This is an interesting point. I think that many Marvel movies play well to all ages, even though they have some adult humor and concept in them. Mm-hmm. I think this trends almost the oldest of all the Marvel movies, except for maybe Black Panther. It was heavy. It was sad. I would not bring, I mean, every kid's maturity level is different. I was a mature kid that went to like R-rated movies, but I don't know if I would bring your typical baseline 7 or 8-year-old to see Infinity War.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have a kid, so I can't tell what kids these days think about. But yeah, I don't know kids these days. What are they up to? But yeah, I don't know how kids will react to it. I don't think it will be very very good for them to introduce, especially what happens in the end. Like, it's not good.
Well, and let's talk about the end a little bit, because this is really, for me, it seems like it's the thing about this movie that's going to be the most divisive, even in the theater I was in. You know, we've read a lot of comic books, and we know nobody ever really dies. And it's just part of the medium now. You can complain about it all you want, but you're not going to change anything by complaining about it. Right. And you know, as we see these characters in the order that they're fading away, like, it was shocking for the first 1 or 2. And then you realize that all the characters that are fading away are the characters that already have sequels, like, on the movie slate. And so you realize that, like, they're not dying. Like, I think to even frame it as dying is a mistake, because clearly they're in the next movie. Clearly there's going to be more movies.
Right.
So they're not all dead. Like, we're not really saying goodbye to them. And I think that people who are reading it as like a literal death and saying like, well, they're not going to be dead in the next movie. Like, surprise, they're not. So it's not really a death. And so it just feels to me like, why are you getting wound up about that? But that to me is maybe because we're comic book fans and we know not to take death seriously. And to me, it's one more way that it feels so much more comic booky than a film. Like, it doesn't spend a minute pretending that they're really going to be dead forever. It's just about the visual impact and the emotion of that moment where we lose them, even knowing we're going to get them back, which is very kind of comic book experience.
And to be honest, that's very true. But the thing is, like, I went second time with my friend who is not a comic book reader, but she is a huge MCU fan. And to her, she was like, well, this is the end. I can choose.
So she really thought that we're never going to see Doctor Strange ever again.
No. That's not what she was saying. She's like, you decide. You can say this is the end. This is the end of the movie. Like, this is the end of the all 19 movie, and Thanos won. You don't have to watch anything else. You don't have to. You can take this ending and walk away from it. So if you choose to. So I think, like, yes, there is that debate of like these people, but my personal theory is, and this is something that I was kind of thinking about a lot, and I was talking to my friend about it, is that the ones that are left behind are dead. And the ones that faded away actually went to somewhere, because that makes sense in the sense like the ones that are left behind are all the actors whose contracts are up.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be kind of some switcheroo in the next movie related to the ones that were kind of like left behind. Who knows? I mean, immediately my thoughts went to Hickman's run, because clearly, even though this is effectively the Infinity Gauntlet story, it draws a lot of inspiration from Hickman's Infinity and Hickman's Avengers. It has the whole Cull Obsidian, people, and so I thought, like, wow, what if we're coming back to like an incursion situation where they're going to have to make a decision between two Earths or two groups of heroes, and we're going to see all the heroes that got left behind sacrifice themselves. But then, of course, I got really mad because I'm like, but Okoye is one of the ones left behind, and she can't die.
Exactly. That's the only reason. Okoye and Black Widow, they're the two, they're the two reasons I'm like, I don't want that to be true. I have no problem being wrong about it. Because if they haven't said the next name of the next movie yet, if they said this is called Avengers Incursion, I'm going to lose my mind.
So there's a lot of speculation about that. A lot of people kind of thought they would just give it another name from the Infinity stuff, like they would actually call it Infinity Gauntlet, or they would call it Infinity Crusade, which were the two events on either side of Infinity War. There's also been Infinity Abyss, which I don't think is a very good movie name. Some people think it's going to be called Avengers Endgame, which I think is a strange name. The one that really worked for me is Avengers in Forever, because Avengers Forever was a comic book in the Kurt Busiek 1998 run of Avengers, but it was like a sideline miniseries that had to do a lot of like leaping around in time and fixing past mistakes and alternate versions. And it feels like that might be a place that we're going in the next movie, since clearly Doctor Strange is some kind of linchpin here, because he knew that the only way for it to work was to sacrifice himself. I feel like we're going to see some kind of time stone thing going on. And so my money currently is on Avengers Forever.
Well, if Disney gonna come and say it's gonna be Avengers Forever, and they're gonna be slapped by Warner Brothers with a name infringement for Batman Forever, so I don't think.
But I don't know.
I don't think that's gonna work, and it doesn't sound like an interesting. I mean, as a comic book, it's like it is, but the thing is, I don't know. Yeah, And then
other people said it could be Avengers Disassembled, and I'm like, I think we saw them get disassembled already, and so like could be like Avengers Reassembled. I'm pretty convinced that the next phase will be New Avengers. It just feels like we're going there. So So I feel like we have to have like one kind of transformational one, and then in like 2021 or 2022, we'll get New Avengers.
Ooh, that's gonna be interesting.
I know.
I mean,
no, go ahead.
No, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about kind of our general reactions. So now I want to rewind a little bit to talk about who were the most valuable players in this movie. Clearly, Thanos is like the star, effectively. But in this huge cast of, 20 plus named characters that we all have opinions about already, who really stood out either for their plot, for their performance, just because they were cool? Who really stood out for you?
For me, it would be Gamora and Thor.
It's Gamora 100% for me. It felt like, by extension of Thanos being the star, that it was like the Gamora movie to me.
Right. It was completely left field. It came out of nowhere. At no point, I thought that they're gonna be one of the things like, oh yeah, he's my father. He destroyed my family, so I'm gonna join you to kill him and something like that. But what was brought, their storyline and everything that happened with the two of them was outstanding, and I didn't see that coming at all.
No, I didn't either. I was shocked. Totally shocked.
The scene with Nebula's torture, I was like, the whole time I was like, stop doing that. So that was crazy. But yeah, especially I would have to give it to Zoe Saldana for her performance, because when her face, when Red Skull showed up there, that was like, what the?
That was probably the biggest WTF moment of the entire movie.
Right. I'm like, wait, what? And then when he says that, oh, the tears are not for him, and then, her face changes and it dawns onto her what's about to happen, was like, I was like, that was like a micro expression change. It begins and then it completes. It's like, oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and that to me is why she's the MVP. It's not just because she's in it a lot or because she's connected with Thanos, but because they give her plot beats that are emotional plot beats that pay off so deeply. She's the one we get the childhood scenes with. Nobody else gets any kind of flashback. Mm-hmm. She has some of the biggest emotional moments in the movie. The moment where she thinks she kills Thanos was I couldn't even breathe. I was like, what's gonna happen now? The moment where she tells Peter Quill that he's going to have to kill her, the moment with Nebula, the moment before she dies. I think they just gave her such great material, and it's nice to see them really let their actors act. I feel like in a lot of these movies, the plot kind of shuffles along, and we don't get a lot of really good acting. And Zoe Saldana is somebody who's an awards caliber actress. Although honestly, the whole cast, if you told me right now that the next 10 best actor Oscars would go to members of this cast, I would not be surprised in the slightest. They're a very talented group of people. I mean, yeah, if they were if Oscar
not
was for this movie, but the next 10 years of them coming into their own and having their moment. Right.
If Oscars were smart and they were doing something like a cameo appearance category kind of thing, then this would be. And I think Zoe Saldana should have. Well, no, it's a rich. But anyway, yeah, I think it was her performance and their interaction together. I think that to me that took the cake. Especially from the young age to all the way, it's everything.
So talk a little bit about why Thor is your other MVP, because I did love Thor, but my second one might be different.
So for Thor, it's it was I don't know, for some reason it was kind of reminding me a little bit of Hickman's, the Thor just showing up to places when you were least expecting them and doing some really cool stuff. There's a little bit of that. But at the same time, it was actually that scene when he was talking to Rocket and he was telling that he has nothing to lose. It's actually Hemsworth's performance. That's the other one. He went from funny to dramatic to oh my God, to scary. It's all of it kind of happened at the same scene. And the fact that he's the one who is truly lost everyone. Everyone has lost something. Cap lost Peggy, Sharon Carter, sorry, right? Yeah. Sharon? No, Peggy Carter.
Peggy.
Yeah. Iron Man is kind of he's still kind of dealing with Pepper Potts and stuff. Everyone lost something, but Thor is the only one who lost everyone. At the beginning, when Thanos dispatches Loki and Idris Elba, I was gonna say, and Idris and Heimdall, his whole his Asgard is gone, his father is dead, his mother is gone. He lost everyone, and I think the whole thing when he says that, oh, what, I don't have anything to lose. What do I have to lose? That to me was Oh no, that's very like, I don't know. It just like the whole thing kind of made it, and then in the end, like when he was like shaking Thanos, like what did you do? Like it was, to me, that take the second cake.
Yeah, I think that Thor ultimately, I feel like Ragnarok has really re-energized Hemsworth as an actor. Like, I did not like the first two Thor movies. At least Dark World was visually really appealing, but and he's always kind of just seemed like kind of like a sideline, like punchline sort of character in the Avengers movies. And Ragnarok, which was so funny, I feel like really like found the center of Thor's character, and that plot continued here. I think if I had to tell somebody what movie do you have to see before you see Infinity War, I would say Ragnarok. Because it's just so important to understand Thor's arc in this movie and why it's so important. And I got major like Messiah vibes off of him, that he gets his eye back, he gets his new hammer, he's like more powerful than ever, and he's the only one left of his race, although clearly some of the people from the ship we never saw what happened to, including Valkyrie. But I mean, like, and then he comes back to Earth, and it was really giving me like Second Coming kind of vibes, and I think he performed it incredibly well, and it feels like a huge continuation from his arc from Ragnarok.
Oh, this is a direct sequel to Ragnarok.
Absolutely.
Like,
I mean, it starts minutes, weeks, months after Ragnarok. It's the most direct following of Ragnarok of any of the previous movies.
Right. It's kind of like, you know how Avengers, like Captain America Civil War was Avengers 2.5. This was Thor 3.5 in a way. Like, 3.2 quarters. Like 3 quarters. Yeah. Anyway, something. But yeah, so who was your second?
So it's interesting that you brought up the scene with Thor and Rocket that they have together, because to me, this is crazy to say, but is Rocket Raccoon my second favorite character in this movie? He also gets such an arc where he is like the one that has to be the power of not just skepticism, but like optimism here. Like, he's going to go on the other mission with Thor. He's going to learn to be the captain. And he has this moment in that conversation where he's like, crap, I have now got to reassure this giant, beautiful God. And it just was, it was like such a moment. And I just feel like, honestly, you say it feels like Thor 3.25. To me, it felt like Guardians 3, really. I felt like at points I was like, this is a Guardians of the Galaxy movie that just happens to have some Avengers in it. And I mean, Drax got an awesome arc where he finally gets to face off against Thanos repeatedly. And Peter Quill gets an arc about the loss of his mother and how he can't bear to lose Gamora again. It just really felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie to me. And I was okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very good point, though, especially like, how Rocket is like, oh, now I gotta be captain.
It was so great. I'll always remember that moment.
To him, being a captain means you have to, I think he learned that from Peter, like he learned that from Peter Quill, like your namesake, that, it's just like, that being a captain means being there for your crewmate. Like, he's just like, he didn't have to, have to do that, but, he kind of went and then, kind of listened to him, and then also, gave him the eye, which he didn't have to do. It was like,
we know how he loves hoarding his prosthetic body parts.
Oh, he's a prosthetic enthusiast, I mean, that thing is like the arm for sale. Listen, I was like, this is what MCU was all about. Like, this whole 18 movies led up to that moment when Rocket Raccoon got to ask Winter Soldier, hey, is the arm for sale? And then he said, I'm going to get that arm. So it was like, there's like a threes, the comedy of rule of comedy, like a rule of three for comedy. This was the third time that he was like, excited about about a prosthetic. But what was really interesting, that no one ever called him Raccoon. Like, everyone calls him Rabbit, Trash Monkey, or whatever it is. No one calls it, and he doesn't respond to it.
Right, his name in the movie is officially Rocket. It's not Rocket Raccoon.
Right. And the thing is, like, my friend actually pointed out to me, my friend is like, he doesn't know what they're talking about. He never seen a rabbit.
Well, this is the first time he's been to Earth. I hope that we get some kind of sight gag in the next one of him seeing and being like, oh.
Interesting. But the thing is, like, yeah, he just showed up and everyone is so busy fighting. Nobody actually reacts and, wait a second, what's happening? raccoon that is like fighting, and Bucky, like, you know, who's like,
I know Bucky uses him as a gun. It was just like, what a...
Like, you know, he just like picks him up. He's like, okay, this one is shooting this way. I'm gonna shoot this way, and we're gonna create a like, you know, bullet round. It was really exciting moments.
But it also made it feel to me like, you know, talking about the characters who got left behind, of whom Rocket is one, could ultimately be sacrificed. I feel like Rocket's arc is done. I feel like if we're talking about like characters who have experienced all that they need to experience, I think he's at a point where he's actually ready to sacrifice himself to get his teammates back, to get Groot back. And so I would not be surprised if he's on the chopping block. Plus, Bradley Cooper is kind of expensive just as a voice actor, and they probably have some other creature type characters that they want to have in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that they would prefer to spend the rendering money on. I would not be shocked if the next movie is Rocket's last movie.
I hate you right now.
Sorry.
Like, I hate you. Did you just say that, oh, Disney doesn't have enough money to get Bradley Cooper's expense? Are you serious?
But just that, like, at the point that you have, you know, him and Groot, and there's other fantastical characters that they might want to bring into the Guardians of the Galaxy, it feels like everybody's got to lose something. Like, I get the strong feeling Gamora is going to be back as the result of whatever shenanigans go on in the next movie, but it feels like maybe Rocket, I just feel like he's completed his narrative arc.
I mean, you know, I'm kind of thinking like, I don't think there's ever gonna be a sad Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like, you know, there's no way they're gonna have a Guardians of the Galaxy movie where Peter, like, you know, where Star-Lord is just moping about because he lost Gamora. And if he doesn't, then that's gonna be even bigger. Like, you know, it's gonna be even bigger crime that, oh, okay, he didn't care for what? No. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Gamora's will be back. And you know, and yeah, the thing is like, this movie would not have any meaning if everyone came back. Like, if there was,
there's got to be something. We're going to lose something in the permanently, officially.
Yes, someone gotta go, and Loki is not it. Loki, like, I'm fairly sure Loki's not coming back, but someone else gotta go.
Oh, we're gonna lose more in the next one.
Yeah, and it has to be one of the big three. It has to be one of the top, like, you know, first three. And I think Thor has a movie already planned, but there is no Captain America or Iron Man. So,
well, I think it was that they were all three of them had reached the end of their contracts. They'd signed, I guess, 6 movie deals, but they all kind of like agreed that they would be in the next one to like finish it out. But Robert Downey Jr. then all of a sudden got excited and wound up being in Spider-Man. But Chris Evans has been making a lot of noise about like he might be done playing Cap. I think Hemsworth was almost done being Thor, and then I think he actually has said in interviews that he's so re-energized by Ragnarok. So it's really an interesting toss-up because like all of them have a reason to go, all of them have a reason to stay. You know, Robert Downey Jr. I think rightfully feels kind of custodial towards this Marvel film universe. Like he kicked it off, and so I feel like he kind of like maybe feels a little bit like the ringleader. And then you have Chris Evans, who's like literal Captain America in real life as much as he can be, and then you have Hemsworth, who's like really finally like feeling like got to the meat of Thor. So it's gonna be heartbreaking no matter which one of them we lose, but then it also won't be like totally surprising depending on who stays. Right,
but yeah, and at the same time, like whichever way they go is like the two contender to be captain, like, you know, Bucky and Winter and Falcon, both of them are gone. So
right. Yeah, which is part of why I'm really kind of looking forward to Cap stepping off the stage, because I love Winter Soldier as Cap. I love Falcon Cap, and so I'm ready. I'm like, okay, goodbye, Chris Evans, even though I love him, because I'm ready for that next story. Now, we've talked a lot about our top characters. We agree on Gamora. We had a split decision on. I probably have Thor as my number 3, so I think the Thor Rocket is appropriate. Right. Who like didn't really work for you, and like, was there anyone who kind of stuck out like a sore thumb?
Not actually, because I feel like everyone got something to do, like including Groot. Like he was like playing his video game all through the day, like, you know, and then he stepped up, gave his arm to create the Stormbreaker.
Another great moment.
Became the hilt of the Stormbreaker. And then we have that glorious moment. And this is like the best moment ever in MCU. It's like, I'm Groot, I'm Steve Rogers. Like,
so good.
That sincere moment. Like he was sincerely saying.
Honestly, now that I had forgotten about it for a couple of days, but I kind of just want to like put this all away and just run right to the movie theater and see it again. Like that puts such a smile on my face.
Like it's like, you know, because I don't think there has been that time when he was ever introduced himself as Steve Rogers. He's always introduced, like he's always being introduced as Captain. So people kind of like, you know, and people knows that he's Captain. Like they call him, like, so he's like, I'm Steve Rogers. Like it's perfect. I think the one I would say probably is Shuri. Like, I wasn't sure if she needed to be there or I don't know. That's like, that would probably be the, and I'm not saying she is, but if I have to choose, gun to my head, I would probably choose her.
Yeah, they're kind of, I mean, I enjoy a good fake out in a movie, and I think that some people who expect all things to always like resolve the way they ought to resolve maybe were frustrated by the fact that like she didn't even need to be there because her vision thing doesn't necessarily work. Right. At the same time, like I think that moment with her and Bruce Banner was fun. I think it was nice to like, it was necessary to introduce her into the wider world of Marvel, especially because so many of the heavy hitters are gone in the next movie, and we did not see if she disintegrated or not. But if she didn't, I think it's going to be really important. And if she did, I think either side could make great use of her. And I feel like she's got to turn up a little bit in the next one.
Right. And that's, to me, I think one of the, and this is one of the, like, you know, we're kind of speculating too much, but it's one of those.
There's no too much.
Yeah, there's no too much of speculation. But it's like, is she being introduced as a stand-in for Iron Man? Like, you know, because is that the reason to have her meet Banner so that they can work? I don't know. It's
or
just like,
is she going to be Black Panther? Because in the comic book, she's the queen in Black Panther. We saw her challenge him only half jokingly in Black Panther, and now T'Challa is gone. So, I mean, it's going to be Shuri or M'Baku, right? It's got to be one of them.
Oh, okay. Hey, don't forget don't forget her.
Yeah, but she does not want to be Black Panther, though. She has her own separate. I think for me, if there were two characters that just weren't really doing it for me, I feel like you could have removed Black Widow from this movie. I wish somebody would remove her stupid blonde wig. That is the worst decision in this entire movie. It was hideous. It was limp. It just, like, they didn't even style it. It didn't look right on her. I hated it so much. But then she had like one good fight moment with Proxima Midnight, which made me kind of excited. But I feel like she could have been completely removed. All of Scarlet Witch's fights would have, you know, turned out the same. Scarlet Witch would have come to Okoye's rescue at the end. I just feel like there was no reason to be there. She added nothing.
Well, first of all, you've never been on the run, so you don't know how hair maintenance can be while you're on the run from the government for 2 years. Come on. She was just dyeing her hair with
She just bleached it out for what? Because that's going to be lower maintenance than keeping the red? I don't know. Doesn't it make her stick out for it more? She's supposed to be covert.
Shut up. But at the same time, but that's always her role, though. Isn't her always role like she's kind of in the background and just comes when it's needed, and she doesn't say much. She just always observe. I think for that, it always fits. And to be honest, though, it's almost as if like we need more sausage fest and we need to take another woman out.
Right. Notice that we both said women, though. I'll point that finger back at you.
I know, but I've said that, you know, she's been there part from the beginning. So I don't want her to be taken out. She was the only woman in the team from the very, very beginning. You know, and she needs her moment in this movie. Like there is no, Shuri just showed up 2 seconds ago. I mean, you know, so I'm not as connected to her. I'm not talking about it as that, but I'm talking more about like, I think her arc fitted for me because I know that like she's always been like that, even in the Avengers. Like she's kind of on the side, and then
I will say that agreeing with you there that she very much felt like the second in command here in a way that she hasn't before. Like I feel like everybody always relies on her, but here it just seemed really obvious that Captain America was the number one and she was the number two, and that felt good because that did feel like a progression.
Right. I would have probably have something to say if there was like 2 seconds of like, oh, Bruce and her get together and stuff. I loved it that he was like, oh, hey, what's up?
She gave great face in that scene. It was a great facial acting.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what's up? Something's like, you know, we have bigger things to worry about and we're going to deal with that. You know, that was to me, you know what? Perfect. So Yeah.
So my one other person who I would maybe give the axe, and this will probably be the most controversial thing I bet I will say, is I think Mark Ruffalo is not cut out to be in these movies.
What?
He was wooden in Thor Ragnarok. It was like they were all having so much fun. And when he's Bruce Banner, maybe he loves the mocap suit. I don't know. But he just felt like he was like a beat behind them in every delivery. And then in this movie, it just, I don't know. I feel like movies are supposed to sell you on suspension of disbelief. You're never supposed to think about the actor in that moment doing that thing. You're always just supposed to see the character. And I could never see the character. It always was him going, come on, green guy. Like, it seemed like so fake. And I never had a moment in the movie where I felt like he was there. It felt like we were watching like an Upright Citizens Brigade, just like making jokes on each other. And then they pulled him out of the audience as their like straight man. He did not work for me for 1 second. In fact, I thought I was going to hate the movie because I hated him so much in those initial scenes, which he's really kind of the star of the Guardians fight. The Ragnarok follow-up fight, and then also the big fight on Earth where they're trying to defend the Time Stone. And I was like, this movie's gonna suck. And then thankfully there was less Bruce Banner in it after that, and then I liked it.
Oh, yeah, I kind of agree with it to a point, but I don't know whether it's like and this is me because it's one of those things like I'm trying to justify because I like the whole, like the whole movie. So I have, like, if someone debates something, I have a counterpoint to it.
Well, it's the point of this program, I think.
Right. It's a point counterpoint with Peter and Fangirl. But no, I think like is it like he's just unsettled because he's been trapped as Hulk for so long. And then now he's just like, kind of coming back. But he's also kind of said that next time he turns Hulk, he's not going to be able to get back. And now he can't get Hulk to come out anymore. Like, he's just unsettled about this whole thing. And it was just like, one after another. And it's kind of doing a number on him. I was kind of taking it as that. Like, he seemed a little unsettled by the whole thing.
I guess for me, Ruffalo's an amazing actor. I think he's probably one of the ones most likely to win a boatload of awards in the near future. But he just tonally feels a little out of place in this universe. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people who've kind of embraced the pulpiness, and when you see him like reach for that as an actor, I feel like it's just like really obvious looking. Whereas like Chris Evans can say the goofiest thing, and it totally reads as like he really believes it because he's like inside of the pulpiness.
Oh, he's Cap. Yeah. I have no doubt about it.
And I just don't feel it on Ruffalo. Okay, so that's me being negative. So now we've talked about our top.
No, be more negative. Before we move out on from Hulk, or Bruce Banner, like, what's your thought about Hulk not being present in this?
I think that they had to hamstring anybody who would have ruined the suspension of disbelief that Thanos had them on the ropes. And they needed Doctor Strange to feel like a big enough hero because he's probably one of the least known out of all of these characters at this point, even though he had his own movie. So I think Hulk had to be really seriously downgraded in order for this movie to work. And who else? There was one other one that I've seen people talking about, like, oh, I wish so-and-so wasn't so lame. And I'm like, the whole reason they were lame narratively was because we needed to see Doctor Strange and eventually Thor be the only two people at the same power level as Thanos. I can't think of what the other comment I've seen has been. So like, to me, it kind of just felt like a narrative device. Like, you kind of just have to accept it because the movie's Vision narratively had to get wounded in his first scene because you couldn't have like full power phasing through stuff super like as powerful as all the Avengers together, possibly lifting Thor's hammer Vision, because it just would ruin the balance of the whole movie. So I kind of like, that was one of those things where I could see the gears turning behind the movie magic. And I was like, okay, well, it's only two characters out of this huge cast that had to kind of get handicapped, and that's fine. It happens in the comic books too. Avengers No Surrender, which just wrapped up, the whole conceit was that only a certain amount of Avengers could be active at any given time, and the rest of them were just frozen, which is like the most transparent conceit of like, we're not going to write all these characters at once. It unbalances it too much. But you just go, okay, well, that's the story.
Or the 1000 X-Men comics where Professor X is somehow, he's X'd out.
Right, because you can't have the most powerful psychic in the world, and they're like fighting the Marauders. Like, it just doesn't line up. Yes.
Yeah, but to me, I think I kind of enjoyed. Like, I'm completely agreeing with you. This is the only reason they needed to do it. But at the same time, I kind of liked the way they did it because it kind of shows that Hulk is so scared of Thanos that he doesn't want to come back.
That is true. I mean, I think they found a narratively appropriate way to make it.
Right, because he got like, he was so, because he never was defeated ever by anyone. He just went with the force and then they were down. But this guy, he not only the force didn't work, he was tactical enough to put him down, and ultimately like Hulk is only 2-year-old. Like, he's like a 2-year-old, and he was just beaten.
He's a very angry toddler. Yeah.
Right. He's a very angry toddler, and he was just bitten, and now he's like, I don't wanna, because if I know that you're gonna put me in front of him, and I don't want to do that. It's like, I thought that it was kind of like a combination of like Hulk and like they're truly two different person, and it was a very interesting thing, and I would like to see what they do with him in the future.
Well, and I do think it's a good reflection of this idea of like Hulk as the like the id, like it's this most he's not only physically powerful, but he's the most powerful part of the personality, and he just wants what he wants. And it's like, if that's the part of the personality that's being represented, and that personality gets smacked down as hard as he did by Thanos, like, yeah, that's the natural human reaction. Like, you don't want to expose your personality to risk again because you don't want to be defeated again. It's not about the physical feeling of being beaten. It's about like not being made to look dumb or stupid or weak. So I thought that like for Hulk to be kind of like untethered, unrestricted emotion, and to have that kind of visceral response, like not wanting to be put in that situation again, actually really read really a lot more deep to me than just like Hulk doesn't want to come out and play. It actually really, to me, connected with the origins of the character.
Right. So that my invisible hats off to them, trademark. I always putting my invisible hats off to people, is that they found a way to do that. Like, they took the character out, which they had to do, because if Hulk is there, okay, well, what's your excuse?
Yeah.
They had to, but then they did it in a more poetic way, like, let's just say.
So I do want to talk about some of our favorite moments and then get into kind of like some speculation. But before we go there, you have your notes too. I want to have a brief insert here, and then you could take over with your notes for a little while. I want to talk about the Black Order. Did this movie get them right? Who did it get the most right? Who did it not get the most right? Because this is videos going up in the middle of us talking about this Jonathan Hickman run, and they were pulled directly from that run.
Oh my God, I was like freaking out about it, when they just showed up. Obviously Ebony Maw to take
it was just amazing. It was it was even better than the comics. It was so perfect.
Better than the comics. They had the direct scene from the comics with him and Doctor Strange, right?
Yes. Did you just have such a moment in the theater of kind of like, did anybody else see this?
Yeah, nobody else noticed it. I'm like, shame. I was like that, that nun from the Game of Thrones just going, shame on all of you for not realizing this. And also Proxima Midnight was just as scary, like, just strutting up and down and, being defeated, and like it was all good. Speaking of things that you didn't like, I did not like how quickly they were dispatched. All of them.
I feel like Marvel movies are just addicted to like having somebody that they can just kill, because they feel like, again, this is like a thing about film versus comics. Like in comics, you do not expect the bad guy to die. And so you don't need them to die for there to be a decisive defeat. But I feel like in films, moviegoers expect characters to be really dispatched. And so like Marvel needs to do that, and they know they weren't going to kill Thanos necessarily, and so they decide to kill the Black Order. But it seems like their gig in the comic books might be that they just keep getting brought back, much like the Marauders, actually. So maybe we will see them again. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's possible to do that, but the thing is, like, I mean, I don't think they will. They didn't like, left a big. And the thing is, in comic as well, comic counterpart, they were dispatched. A couple of them were actually dispatched, but the other ones actually was like kind of ran away, And I feel like something like that could have happened, and I don't know, but I was like, oh, come on, they're so powerful, and especially Carl Obsidian, whose original name is Black Dwarf. Right. Yeah. His name is Black Dwarf, and then they changed the name to Call Obsidian, which was the name of the whole team. Yes, I'm that much of a nerd.
No, I had that same moment of like, what?
Right. And he didn't have much to do. I didn't like that. I mean, they were picture perfect. But
I don't know if I would say that Proxima Midnight was picture perfect. She was great, and I loved how they used her, but it was like, I think they like played with the CG on her face a little bit too much because it just was. I was just like, just put a freaking mask on a human woman, please. Like, not everything needs to be computer animated. She does, you know, but I think they all very much look the part. I think Corvus Glaive was ultimately like a little bit underused, but I think that they were excited that they had a strong female henchperson, and she is great in the comics. So they wanted to have Proxima like really be a good villain, and it feels like she got the most screen time of the ones who remained on Earth. So I'm not going to be like upset that Corvus Glaive didn't get a lot of stuff. But in the comic books, I think there's like a little bit more to him. But also in the comic books, he's kind of the leader. But in the movie, they kind of made Ebony Maw the leader. So I understand that there was a give and take there.
Well, Corvus Glaive was the one who was first dispatched in the comic, though. He was the one who was killed by Thanos very, very quickly because he failed. Sorry, not by Thanos, by actually the Avengers very quickly. He was the first to go, and you know he was the one who failed to retrieve the thing, and then Thanos really kicked his ass, blah blah blah. And he's like a little bit too much Korg, and you know a little bit too much Hulk. So I understand why they had to draw him down. What I like,
I wasn't upset about it. I just was kind of like, oh, like I feel like he's like usually a little scarier than this.
But to me, it was like Supergiant wasn't there. That was
I know. But they kind of merged her into Ebony Maw because they gave him like so much more psychic telekinesis stuff that like it just I couldn't get upset about it because I was like, well, I mean, you could have made him a woman and kind of made him Supergiant and not had Ebony Maw, but he just was so good that I can't get upset about it.
No, I mean, I'm not. It's not. This is not complete. This is like wishful thinking, more like that. Because the thing is, and I also understand because Supergiant took down X-Men in the comic. She took down the X-Men.
Right, because you needed, again, with Xavier, you needed like the psychic villain. But in the movie, unless you were going to have her face off against Scarlet Witch, what are you going to do with a psychic villain? Meanwhile, Scarlet Witch merging a little bit into the best moments of the movie. That Scarlet Witch fight choreography where she's fighting them in the alleyway and Vision is down, that was amazing. And we know that I do not like movie Scarlet Witch, but I was like, okay, well, if you're going to have Jean Grey and not use Scarlet Witch, this is a good Jean Grey fight. Like, it's physical. Telekinesis is a physical power. It's not all floating around. You punch people with it.
And not only that, it's just like there was like the scene was like she's the one who's protecting her lover, like kind of like
that was even though he's like thought of as being more powerful, like no, Scarlet Witch is more Jean Grey is more powerful.
Yeah, and then she was like kind of doing her best to think, and then this is also the scene where Captain America is like is introduced. I was like,
I might have made that noise to myself. It was so good. It was just such a good moment where he catches the spear.
Yeah, like this, he catches the spear, and I'm like, like anyway. But the thing is, where I was going with that is that, with Supergiant, going back to that, it's like her story is also Gamora's story, kind of from the comic, because it was her people was killed, and then then he kind of took her over, so it was kind of her story. So I kind of understand that, but like with this Scarlet Witch. I feel like she should have more to do. I don't know. I feel like it was there, but not enough. But then also, like, pretty much what Okoye said. Why was she standing up there? It was like that moment was like, I'm like, yeah, right? Like, I don't know. But, oh well.
Yeah, I ultimately, for all of my complaining about, like, it's not like the comic or whatever, like, I understand the film adaptation process. Like it doesn't bother me that there's no Supergiant because obviously if you're looking at how to simplify this massive amount of story that you have in the comic books, it like you explained all the reasons why you would merge her into other characters. And so I can't get too upset about that. I just get annoyed when there's things that could like easily be like the comic book and they're not. And Scarlet Witch continues to be a thorn in my side because in every movie there's been a chance for her powers to get corrupted. When Quicksilver dies in Age of Ultron and Civil War as the result of the airport fight, in this movie as a result of trying to use them on Vision Stone, and yet she's still just Jean Grey. Like, where is the chaos? I need my chaos. I love Scarlet Witch and I'm offended that I am not getting chaos powers.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's coming. But one thing I would actually thank the MCU gods or whatever is that her accent died a quiet, quiet death.
She's been assimilated into Western culture now.
I mean, thank the universe for that.
And I feel like her acting got better without her like constantly like squinting to get the accent right.
Exactly. And you know what? It's fine. It's completely fine. It's just like, someone was saying that, oh yeah, another person got whitewashed. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I'm trying to fix my accent all the time. What are you talking about? That's not a sign of being whitewashed. She's white. Sokovia is white. Like, it's
and people do have the expectation that she'd be portrayed as Romani because of the comics.
Oh, okay,
but I don't think whitewashing. I think it's a mistake to say the process of being assimilated by an accent is a process of whitewashing. But that's a really interesting conversation about colonialization, which I think is like a Black Panther kind of conversation. Like I have a daughter who's going to be 5 in a few months, and she's starting to speak with a Kiwi New Zealand accent now because she's in school and she spends so much time around those people. And she gets home and I'm like, what have you done with my kid? Why do you not sound like us anymore? But like we brought her to New Zealand. I'm sure I'm going to start getting the accent just like Madonna, but it's just going to take me longer.
I'm going to start calling you Madonna if you start speaking in Kiwi.
Please do, because the question I ask myself every day when I'm trying to make decisions about life is, what would Madonna do?
Oh, okay. Interesting. In that case, yes. Okay.